Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are. Guys, you know, Leonard Ellerbe, man, that guy's steaming, man. That guy's steaming. He was not happy. Yo, he was talking about Canelo and he was going in. Now, Leonard Ellerbe. So, guys, this video is going to be, before we get into it, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, share the video. Guys, this video, I'm going to do two parts to it. I'm gonna talk about what Ellerbe had to say about Canelo. Then I'm also gonna do a video about Eubank and what next, and the fact that he's calling out Golovkin. Guys, Leonard Ellerbe is somebody that, you know, Leonard Ellerbe says that, you know what, he likes Canelo. He thinks that Canelo is a great fighter, and he said he's given his props. But it's funny because Leonard Ellerbe has literally picked against Canelo in the last couple of fights. I don't think he picked against Saunders, but you know, he said he can't beat Caleb Plant. And then he said, well, he's got no chance against Bivol. He goes, you might as well forget about it. At 168 or 175, Canelo Alvarez has literally no chance against Dimitri Bivol. Which may be the case. Like, you know, maybe stylistically Bivol might just have his number. We don't know because he was so thoroughly outboxed. You know, we don't know whether Canelo can make the right adjustments. And if it's at 175, you know, 168, you know, might give him a better chance. But like I said, I don't like that. I don't want him to handicap Bivol, or Bivol to be handicapped. I think Bivol now won't take the fight at 168. What does he have to gain, really? Unless, you know, he wants to become undisputed, then he might consider it. But the way Leonard Ellerbe just dismissed Canelo's chances against Dimitri Bivol, and he's done this before, like, you know, Leonard Ellerbe is one of those guys. When he says something, he's almost saying it like it's a stamp of certainty that that's not going to happen. I remember when he said Josh Taylor and Ramirez, he said, Ramirez, Taylor's got no chance. Ramirez is going to win. And many times he makes it, when he gives his opinion, he's almost like, it's almost like he can see the future. Like he's telling you what's going to happen. Yeah, Canelo's got no chance of beating Caleb Plant. And then he ended up beating Caleb Plant. Oh, Canelo's got no chance against Bivol in the rematch. He goes, we know boxing. If Floyd bet on Bivol, he's like, we know boxing. We know that certain styles just are a problem. Look, Ellerbe might be right. You know, he might be right. But it's just the fact that, you know, I've seen him say things about Canelo like the Caleb Plant. Surely Ellerbe didn't think that Caleb Plant was going to beat Canelo Alvarez. Like, come on. Like, if he had said Bivol, I probably would have said yeah. But the fact that Caleb Plant is with the PBC and, you know, Leonard Ellerbe, we know that has an association with the PBC, and Al Heyman, right? He was only saying that because, you know, Caleb Plant was one of their fighters. Otherwise, there's no way. And also, he knew Caleb because Caleb was always around the Mayweather gym. He was from that gym. So I can understand why he would say that. But let's be brutally honest. No one was picking. No, like, I'm saying like maybe 2% of people, boxing fans, were picking Caleb Plant. Maybe 1% of boxing fans were picking Caleb Plant. So for Leonard Ellerbe to be that confident that Caleb Plant was going to beat Canelo was... And now he's doing exactly the same thing with the Bivol. Where he might be right here because Bivol is a much better fighter than Caleb Plant. And Bivol is a bigger guy. He's a very skilled fighter. So Ellerbe might be right. But it's just the fact that the way he just dismissed Canelo, like he's got no chance, like Canelo can't do anything. There's nothing Canelo can do, which I disagree with, to be honest. But, you know, even if Canelo makes adjustments, what's to say Bivol won't be better? And what's to say that Bivol won't beat Canelo anyway? But the other thing which I found funny is Leonard Ellerbe started saying that the pay-per-view numbers of Canelo and Bivol flopped. He said it did 300,000 pay-per-view buys. Which, to me, I'm sorry, is absurd. Because Canelo Alvarez, I don't know if he's ever done, like, maybe when he first started and going on pay-per-view possibly, but since we know Canelo as a star, I can't remember him doing 300,000 pay-per-view buys. And the number that was reported was 600,000 pay-per-view buys. Now, Ellerbe is right when he says he'll know the inside information that we don't get as fans. And he's basically saying that the number reported is false, that it did half of that. That it did just over 300,000 pay-per-view buys, but nobody, all the official sources that I can think of reported 600,000. Now, obviously, they're getting their information from DAZN, blah, blah, blah. But for the number to be that less, and the fact that it's Canelo Alvarez, the fact that it's Canelo, the biggest star in the sport, I just can't see Canelo doing 300,000 pay-per-view buys, to be honest. I don't see how his numbers would flop like that, from going from 700,000 to 300,000, when, let's be honest, most people thought he was in a much tougher fight. Now, yes, Bivol was an unknown guy, but I'm sorry, I can't see how they do 300,000 unless people in America are just not aware of DAZN. Because all those 700,000 people that bought that fight between him and Plant, yes, there was a lot more riding on that. Plant's pretty unknown. Unless PBC did a great job promoting and DAZN didn't, which I don't think so, because DAZN, they're really pushing their content out there, you know. They're advertising their stuff on social media, then they're pushing their stuff quite hard. So I can't see that DAZN didn't do their due diligence. That's just not, that's not true. So there's no way that Canelo Alvarez would go from 700,000 to 300,000. The fact that he's on DAZN, it doesn't make sense to me. You know, it just doesn't make sense that Canelo would do such less numbers. I just can't see it. So 600,000 sounds about right, to be honest, because what Leonard was saying, if it did 600,000 pay-per-view buys, right, then DAZN and Eddie Hearn will be, like, he literally hates Eddie Hearn. He goes, they'd be screaming from the rooftops, saying that, oh my God, it did 600,000 pay-per-view buys. Because he goes, 600,000 is a phenomenal, let's be honest, 600,000 in America is phenomenal, because how many people are doing those type of pay-per-view numbers? Hardly any. But here's the thing. If Canelo Alvarez got paid 50 million or whatever he got paid for the Bivol fight, and that only did 300,000 pay-per-view buys, I'm sorry, someone's making a huge loss. Are they even making a profit if he did 600,000 pay-per-view buys? Because if you work that out, 600,000 of, and just say if it's $80, just say if it's the pay-per-view is $80 roughly, right? So that would be 80 million if it was 1 million. So that would be probably around 50 million. About $50 million they've generated. So Canelo probably got about 40 million. What did he get? 45 million for the fight? So, and Bivol got 5 million. So how much did they generate? Obviously then the gate as well. So they'd just be about breaking even, if that's the case. You know, even with 600,000. So if it's what Leonard says, then they'll be in a massive loss, because there's no way they can afford. Because if that's the case, then DAZN are in big trouble, because they've signed Canelo and they thought having Canelo on their platform is going to get them obviously a lot of signups, and they're going to do a huge pay-per-view numbers. But if Canelo Alvarez is delivering those numbers, then they're in big trouble, because there's no one else that's going to deliver anywhere close to those numbers. So really, their eggs are all in one basket. It's on Canelo, really. And this is why if Canelo loses their platform, they haven't really got any pay-per-view stars. What fight could they put on pay-per-view that's going to do big numbers? You know, and for some reason, I just can't see it doing 300,000 pay-per-view buys. I think I would be shocked if Canelo did 300,000 pay-per-view buys. That is very low for Canelo. Like, I can't remember when Canelo did poor numbers like that before. Like, that would be poor. Like, maybe for other fighters, it's not poor. It'd be, like, good. Like, if Spence did that, it'd be good. But for Canelo, that is pretty poor, because Canelo's numbers are normally over 500,000 pay-per-view buys. You know? And that's why I think DAZN might be pushing the Golovkin fight. You see, Canelo might want the Bivol fight, but DAZN really want the Canelo-Golovkin fight. Eddie Hearn might be wanting Canelo to fight Golovkin, I think. The decision's obviously going to come down to Canelo, But from a business standpoint, DAZN want Golovkin because they know that fight would be huge. Irrespective of Golovkin at the end, the history that those two have got, the back and forth that those two would have with one another, they know that that fight could do some serious signups and it could do some serious business. Hence why I think they'll be trying to push Canelo to take that fight and then maybe fight Bivol later. I think they will want Canelo to go ahead with the September fight with Golovkin, personally, because I just think the money involved, I think the money involved in it would be so big. The signups would be so big for DAZN. I just think they know that they need that fight with Golovkin and Canelo, because I think they've been relying on that. They've been relying on that. They really want that. What they initially thought is Canelo beats Bivol. That'll do some decent pay-per-view numbers. And then the Golovkin-Canelo fight is absolutely huge, even though it's Golovkin. And it might, you know what the worst thing is now? That fight might be even bigger now. Golovkin-Canelo might be even bigger. But here's the thing. DAZN are going to win either, because even if it's Bivol, that fight's going to be massive now because Canelo's just lost. So a lot more people are going to be interested in the rematch. So regardless, it's going to be massive. So I don't really see how DAZN lose. Even if Canelo fights Bivol, it's massive. If Canelo fights Golovkin, that's massive. That'll do bigger numbers because I think Golovkin's a bigger attraction. Also, Canelo's now lost. So people now will see that fight not as even. Canelo will still be a favorite, but people would see that, there's obviously a vulnerability. People saw Canelo lose. So people would give Golovkin a much better chance in that fight. So that fight will sell even more, in my opinion. So I think DAZN probably want that. And then if Canelo beats Golovkin, see, if Canelo loses again, then Canelo's credibility goes down. They're banking on the fact that if Canelo fights Golovkin, there's a good chance Canelo's going to win. And if Canelo's wins the last fight, because Canelo will only have another fight with DAZN, then the last fight can be against Bivol, which will be huge. So this is what I think DAZN might, this is the angle DAZN might want to push. At the end of the day, the decision is going to be Canelo Alvarez, because if Canelo Alvarez wants to fight Dimitri Bivol right off the bat, they can't really stop him, because he's the one that's going to really call the shots when you think about it. So yeah, let's see how this all plays out. Let's see how this all plays out. I'm looking forward to it because I do think that Canelo is gonna want to fight Dimitri Bivol again, but DAZN might want him to jump into the Golovkin fight. So let's see if they bump heads again, or they just come to an agreement. Maybe Canelo might and his training team might come up, because Canelo said he's going to make a decision soon about whether he's going to go into the Bivol rematch, or because let's be honest, it's not far away, is it? We're in May, right? June, July, August, September. So a couple of months, and, September's going to be here no time. The summer's going to go like that. So, yeah, he's probably going to have to go into camp, middle of June or, July, August, September. Yeah, he's going to have to go into camp probably middle of June. So he's only got another couple of weeks, really, when you think about it, when he's got to make that decision on who he's going to fight. So, yeah, that's my take on it. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Guys, before we end, I need to talk about Brook, Eubank, and Golovkin. So, ideally, I want to talk about Eubank and Golovkin. So, Golovkin, if Canelo doesn't get... Golovkin doesn't get the Canelo fight, there's a lot of talk about a potential fight between Gennady Golovkin and Chris Eubank Jr. People have asked me, what do I think about this fight? To be honest, I don't know what I make of the fight, because I think there's guys out there. See, Golovkin's going to need a fight, because I don't think Golovkin should sit around. But here's the thing. Golovkin's going to want to unify. But I'm thinking, who are the guys there? Charlo's taken up against Selecki. Janibek is fighting Dingham, I believe, for the title. So that might be took up. So Golovkin's going to be left without an opponent. Eubank makes a big fight, especially if Golovkin comes here to the UK to fight Eubank. That fight could be big. But Eddie Hearn has dismissed that. Eddie Hearn has said that, no, Eubank isn't a fight that's going to happen. He's dismissing that. He goes, Golovkin's going to look to unify. The only problem is when they say Golovkin's going to look to unify, Andrade, I believe, hasn't still got the belt. So who is he going to unify against? Charlo's fighting Selecki. When's that fight? Could he potentially wait for that fight and then fight the winner of that? But the problem is with that is that Charlo's on another platform. Charlo's on another platform. So how are they going to make that fight? So Golovkin, there isn't really much out there for him. I think a Eubank fight might be the most lucrative option out there because Eubank's a big name. It's a big fight here in the UK. And Golovkin might be up for that. Golovkin might think, you know what, it's a big payday against a guy that's pretty limited. I should be able to beat. And I still favor Golovkin heavily in that fight. Because Eubank's just fundamentally not sound enough to beat someone like Golovkin, in my opinion. And Golovkin and Eubank don't have enough power. Golovkin's just going to walk straight through him. I don't really see how Eubank wins that fight. I think Golovkin beats him on points or even stops him. Now, Eubank is tough, but to get beat up by Golovkin, I don't know how tough he would be because I just think Golovkin will pummel him. I don't think Eubank has the boxing ability to keep himself out of trouble, and I don't think Eubank has anything to keep Golovkin off. I don't think Eubank has any power. You know, yeah, he throws punches in bunches, but they don't really have much power, you know. And I think, look, if George Groves can walk through them, then Golovkin's going to walk through it. And then Golovkin's going to be landing some big leather as well. So I don't really see how Eubank wins against Golovkin personally. But I think it's a big fight, and I think it makes sense financially. Now, Eubank was having a dig at Kell Brook. Eubank was calling out Kell Brook. And I found that absurd, to be honest with you. I was like, this guy's off his head. Like, how can you be calling out Kell Brook's just retired. So basically he was saying Kell Brook's not the sharpest tool in the box. Kell Brook should fight me, he should come out of retirement, you know, that money's not gonna last, and saying all this ridiculous stuff. Firstly, the man's just retired. He's past his best. You're calling out a welterweight, effectively a guy slightly bigger than welterweight, to fight you. It's ridiculous. It's absolute ridiculous, the fact that he's calling out a guy that's past his best and he's nowhere near a middleweight. It's ridiculous. And that just tells you that Eubank's not serious. Eubank's not serious for me. Like, even Kali Salon was trying to obviously say, oh, well, everybody says, oh, I want to fight for the belts, but they're all, yeah, we get that. But fight somebody credible in the middleweight division. Try to make a fight, not with Kell Brook. That's not a credible fight. Fighting a guy that's washed up and at welterweight. You know, that's not a credible fight. Even Liam Smith's a good fight. Even Liam Smith is a good fight. But Kell Brook, come on. That's a ridiculous fight. You know, it just shows doesn't show any ambition. And I listen, I've always been a guy that liked Eubank. I've never been a guy that dislikes you. Like, a lot of the British boxing fans seem to dislike Eubank. And they give him they're a bit more harsh. They're a lot more harsh on him than I am. I actually think there is a boxer in him there. But it's just the fact, some of the moves, some of the stuff, some of the time, sometimes when I see him box in the ring, he can be frustrating. I just think that Eubank needs to now jump into a big fight. Even if it's not for a title, but jump into a big fight against somebody in the middleweight division that's considered a top middleweight, you know? Because let's be honest, he's not fighting anybody. He's calling out guys that are small. Even the Liam Smith fight, right? It's a guy against a guy in a smaller weight class. What does that do for him winning he's never won a world title. Like, if he had won a world title, I can understand him calling these fights, big fights for paydays, and so I can understand that. But don't be you've never been a world champion. He's never been a world champion. If he was a world champion, he called out these names for financial, fair enough, but he's done what he needed to do, became a world champion. He doesn't really have much ambition now just to make money, fair enough. But he almost said, like, yeah, you know, he beat Amir Khan and Amir was a great fighter, and, you know, but he was past his best. Imagine beating a prime Chris Eubank. He was making himself sound like a prime Chris Eubank, like he was some kind of monster. You know, Chris Eubank has never won a world title. Even if Kell Brook beat him in years to come, unless Eubank goes on to have a stellar career after that, it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't really mean anything when you think about it. So I don't know. I just think Eubank has a very high inflated opinion about himself, but I don't think he's achieved a lot to really have that opinion about himself. You know, I find him bizarre, to be honest with you. I find Eubank bizarre, but it is what it is. Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.